Hey! Hey there! Today I'm going to show you my updated build for Bunny. Now, I wasn't really going to make this video, but because a lot of you asked me to, specifically whether to use Gap in Time or Power Beyond, I decided to explain a little bit about each modules. At first, I was made to believe that the 15% power ratio bonus from Power Beyond only applies when a ground or global DOT ability has been casted, hence the word trigger. This trigger module actually had different problem during demo, and I was able to help the devs fix this, and thankfully they did. When we discovered that the power ratio applied to everyone, I assumed that this was a bug, but this was recently confirmed that it isn't. Now people are now weighing which trigger module to use for Bunny. This video will try to explain and give you the math in case you want to calculate your skill cycle DPS when using Power Beyond or Gap in Time. I'll first talk about Power Beyond because this is the easiest to explain. Basically, this just gives you the stated power ratio value by just equipping it. You only trigger the Toad effect when you cast global or ground DOT ability, which Bunny does not have. The only synergy Bunny has with this trigger module is with the power ratio increase. With Gap in Time, specifically for Bunny, and I want you to listen very carefully, this can be either good or bad depending on the content and how you use it. First, let's talk about how it works. Basically, if your Descendant has an ability that's tagged with normal AoE, this triggers the module's effect that gives you additional damage by 35% of damage dealt. This is similar as to how you calculate Serena's Redemption's Judgment bonus damage and Hayley's Cryogenic Cluster Shot bonus damage. The only downside of this trigger module is that going cooldown reduction will reduce its value. Since there is a trigger rate, this is calculated similar to how you average critical hit rate and critical damage, but the damage is fixed. As you see here, the damage numbers that comes from this module is going to be insane, but you have to understand how to calculate overall damage. When you calculate a Descendant skill cycle damage, you have to include every relevant skill that is in your disposal. In the case of Bunny, you have Lightning Emission and Electric Condense. These two abilities are currently Bunny's two main damage-dealing abilities. When you calculate this, you have to convert the damage dealt to seconds by dividing the ability damage modifier by its cooldown. In the case of Lightning Emission, you have to calculate how many pulses can Bunny dish out in a second. And here I went frame by frame to look at the pulse rate of Bunny, from damage number to the next damage number. Then we have 1 pulse per 270 milliseconds. That's 3.7 pulses per second. We then average Electric Condense based on the cooldown, and this is assuming that we are casting Electric Condense whenever it's off cooldown. In this case, we are using the famous cooldown Electric Condense build most people are running on Bunny. When we put this into paper, assuming we cast every ability off cooldown without even using the grappling tech which increases Bunny's DPS, we can see that Gap in Time falls short compared to Power Beyond. No matter how much we reduce the cooldown so the trigger rate goes up, the downside of doing so will reduce the value of Electric Condense. This is why when you build your character, do not look at damage numbers, but skill cycles, because cooldown is one of the best damage scaling statistic there is. Think of the logic as if it was applying the relationship of weapon fire rate, reload time, and magazine count. Although Gap in Time will give you the better numbers, it isn't better over time. However, if we remove Electric Condense from the equation, all we have now is the constant damage-dealing Lightning Emission, which isn't affected by cooldown, because pulse rate is only affected by movement speed and distance traveled, hence also technically removing cooldown from the equation. And if we assume that we built Bunny into scaling Lightning Emission's damage and both has the same build, Gap in Time now deals more DPS than Power Beyond. This is the only time we can actually use Gap in Time over Power Beyond. For its use case, I can see myself using this against easier content like Sigma Sector, 400% infiltrations, and Void Vessel, but there really is no need for you to build what I am about to show you. For Gap in Time enjoyers, this is the build. Again, this is only going to be used in easier contents, and this build allows us to run by every mobs including elites and even bosses. The only time we will be using Electric Condense is against the final boss, and it will deal insane damage because of the 100% trigger rate of Gap in Time. Instead of going cooldown, we are going with duration. Since we are only using this on easier contents and because we just run by the enemies, we do not need any HP modules. But if you decide to use this in Axion, you can replace MP Collector with an HP module. You can also replace Power Increase with Singular Master to boost your second ability damage, but you lose a bit of damage on your Electric Condense. For the weapon, all you need is a weapon with 2 precision cores, 1 for speed and 1 for grappling. I'm using Nazisar's Devotion and the build is in this video. Using this arcade tuning will give you a slight increase in damage than going defense neutralization route, and I've tested this again and it basically matched on paper. For inversion, all you need to remember is to not take cooldown if you're using this build. I tried using Bravery and Veteran's Tactics for this build, but due to how bad Veteran's Tactics is right now, it basically doesn't work. Judge Gray, huge shoutout by the way, has a theory that Veteran's Tactics isn't really bugged, but the cooldown reset itself also triggered to abilities that are not on cooldown. It would have been better if the cooldown reset triggers only on abilities that are on cooldown. This way we wouldn't have needed the duration mods and could have possibly spammed Electric Condense and would probably do more damage than the popular build right now. But that's about it for this build really. There is no need to build it because you can just do all it can do using the build in this video. Like I said in my previous videos, trigger modules didn't really change any builds except just slot in a trigger module. So the builds in this video is very much still viable. A lot of you have told me that crit build is better. Although it does deal more damage and I'm honest about that, but you need to sacrifice either mana utility, effective hit points, or range. You can use a crit build if you really like to, just like Bionic Fuel. You can use it if you want, but there's really no benefit in using it aside from chill gameplay. You're just replacing mana utilities with overwhelming shield and HP mods to survive, and you're sacrificing one of your best damage dealing ability, the Electric Condense. That's it for this one guys, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye!
This is held action, reporting extreme concentrations of void energy within the operation zone. All units, please proceed at your own discretion. Do not exceed your limits.